The hour of 9 a.m. are having arrived. I'd like to call the House Gaming Oversight Committee to order on the topic of betting integrity. Before we begin, if someone could take the roll. Bob?
Chairman Harkins, present. Representative Danilo, Burgos, Representative Carroll, Representative Cepeda Freites, Representative Donahue, Representative Friel on here, okay. Representative Gallagher, virtual. Representative Guzman, Representative Haddock, Representative McAndrew on leave, Representative Mirsky, Representative Scott on leave, Representative Waxman on leave. Chairman Diamond here, present. Representative Bernstein on leave, Representative Fritz, Representative Gregory on leave, Representative Hogan, Representative Kephart, Representative Mahaffey, Representative Mostello on leave, Representative Rossi, Representative Rinkavage on leave, Representative Tomlinson online.
Thank you. Our guests are here from the Gaming Control Board this morning, and they have another meeting, so I'll keep my remarks short. Since 2018, when sports betting was first legalized in Pennsylvania, the sports betting industry has grown dramatically. With the introduction of mobile betting apps and the rise of artificial intelligence, it's important to monitor suspicious activity to ensure a safe and fair betting environment. This same monitoring can also be used to spot problem gambling behavior. We're here today to learn more about how this is being done and what the future might hold. Appreciate everyone coming this morning. And Chairman Diamond, do you have any statement?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. I've been a member of this committee for now 5 terms, and this is the first time we've ever covered this topic. So I'm grateful to everybody who's come to testify today, and I look forward for the committee to learn more about this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And with that, we'll introduce our first testifier, Kevin O'Toole, the Executive Director of PA Gaming Control Board.
Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. With me to assist in any questions you may have is Elizabeth Lanza on my right, the board's Director of Compulsive and Problem Gambling, and Paul Resch on my left, our Director of Casino Operations. Also present at the hearing this morning is Commissioner Frank Dermody, and I'd like to recognize him. So before I start the substance here, I just want to tell you how much we really appreciate the opportunity to discuss sports wagering and integrity issues, and just to be at a legislative hearing. It's really an informative process, and we enjoy doing it. So anytime that you have any other topics, please invite us. As the board is the first testifier, I'd like to begin my testimony with a brief history of sports wagering in the Commonwealth, and then move into integrity issues we see and how we are currently handling them. The board would like to begin by commending the General Assembly for its foresight to include the legalization of sports wagering within Act 42 of 2017, which is informally referred to as the Gaming Expansion Bill. As you are all aware, at the time Act 42 was passed, which was late October 2017, due to a federal law known as the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992, or PASPA, sports wagering was only permitted in Oregon, Delaware, Montana, and Nevada, as those states had enacted some form of sports wagering before PASPA was enacted at the federal level. However, also at that time, PASPA was being challenged by the state of New Jersey, and the case was pending before the United States Supreme Court. It took quite a while to get to the Supreme Court. I don't have the date that complaint was filed by the state of New Jersey, but it was a good 6-7 years before it made it to the Supreme Court. So accordingly, Act 42 included a provision by the General Assembly here in Pennsylvania to allow sports wagering to become legal in the Commonwealth pending a favorable decision in that case of New Jersey versus I forget who the other party was. Yeah, United States. And then only about 6 to 7 months later, on May the 14th, 2018, the court found in favor of the state of New Jersey and invalidated PASPA as offensive to the anti-commandeering doctrine under the 10th Amendment, which is simply a doctrine that holds unconstitutional for Congress to legislate what is a state issue. Since the General Assembly thought to include provisions for sports wagering within the already enacted gaming expansion bill, the board began its efforts to launch not only interactive gaming that includes online slots, online table games, and online poker, but also sports wagering, which includes both physical sports books located at the land-based casinos, as well as online sports betting, where you can bet from your smartphone, from your laptop, from your desktop. You just have to be within the confines of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You cannot place a bet for Pennsylvania if you're outside of the Commonwealth. While other states had to fight to legalize sports wagering, and still others continue that fight to this day, Pennsylvania was able to hit the ground running. The board adopted the initial temporary sports wagering regulations at its August 15, 2018 public board meeting. And the Independent Regulatory Review Commission was able to publish the temporary regulations on or about September the 14th, 2018. Those regulations, along with mandated internal controls that are submitted to and approved by the board prior to the launch of any gaming activity, play a major role in ensuring integrity in sports wagering and online gaming. For instance, Board Regulation 1408.8, 1408.9 pertains specifically to risk management and integrity monitoring, respectively. The board did not leave anything to chance. We had it right in the initial regulation, and it's been there ever since. These regulatory provisions include mandates that the sports wagering and online gaming operators must accomplish a number of requirements, which include, and this is just a small number of bullet points because those regulations extend beyond these. But the operators must maintain controls regarding fraud detection, must maintain controls that ensure regulatory compliance, must maintain standards that describe the steps for anti-money laundering compliance, and they must notify the board of all information pertaining to unusual or suspicious activity and to follow that notification with a report to the board. When we get that information, we have an Office of Sports Wagering Operations and a team of sports wagering compliance representatives, and they look very closely at all of that information that comes in from the operators. With the regulations in place and with approved internal controls, the first retail sports book opened in the Commonwealth on November 17th, 2018 at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse in Grantville, Pennsylvania. It's interesting to note that sports wagering was launched well ahead of iGaming. iGaming's first launch was in July of 2019, about 8 or 9 months later. Three properties launched together on July the 15th of 2019 for online slots, online tables, and online poker. Needless to say, the world of regulated gaming, this was a quick turnaround for both sports and iGaming. And today, the board is proud to say that we regulate, on the sports side, 18 retail and 11 online sports books operating throughout the Commonwealth. While the board is proud of the maturing sports wagering market in Pennsylvania, it is important to give some context. Sports wagering within the Commonwealth and nationwide is extremely popular. In Pennsylvania, sports wagering operators took in $8.2 billion in handle, that is the wagers, in fiscal year 23-24, the fiscal year that just ended. It was up $1 billion from the previous fiscal year, from 7.2 million. Of the 8.2 million in this most current fiscal year, winning wagers were paid out, and at the end of fiscal year 23-24, operators reported $487 million in revenue, about 6% of the handle. And from that revenue, $175 million was paid in state and local taxes. While these numbers are significant, they reflect only about 8% of all casino-style gaming revenues and 7% of taxes paid when compared to retail and online casinos combined. Revenue, we publish a press release each month of the revenue of the most current month, and revenue truly has stayed very strong in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that growth is truly direct result of the legislation from 2017 that enacted online gaming and sports wagering. But the land-based casinos are holding their ground. To this day, the top revenue producer is slot machines sitting at those casinos. We have 17 operational and hope for an 18th in the not-too-distant future in State College, Pennsylvania. So make no mistake, however, the board realizes that with its responsibilities involving sports wagering, along with online slots, tables, and poker, came new challenges. Sports wagering has many moving parts. The board must not only concern itself with the integrity of operators and their staffs, which is certainly accomplished through our licensing process, which is extremely efficient, having been an agency now for about 17 years. But with the fairness of wagers as well that are made available to the public, that's a concern to us. And even to some degree with the integrity of the underlying sporting events. Without even considering college sports, as we sit here today, we are in the middle of the NFL season. We're in the Major League Baseball playoffs. World Series is going to start soon. We're at the beginning of the NHL season. And the NBA season starts literally today. With respect to the fairness of wagers, the Gaming Act treats fairness as the core of our responsibilities. Section 1102 of the Gaming Act pertains to legislative intent. The first paragraph of legislative intent, written back in 2004, states that the primary objective, to which all other objectives and purposes are secondary, is to protect the public through the regulation and policing of all activities involving gaming. That has been our mantra for those 17 years. The board protects the public and ensures fairness through its regulations in many ways. But the two that I want to call particular attention to are, number one, the testing that is performed by our board's gaming lab. The Act required a gaming lab. We set that gaming lab up, I believe, before the end of 2006, and it has done a great job for us. They test the software, the hardware, ancillary equipment, used in the conduct of slots, table games, and online gaming, as well as the sports wagering kiosks that you see at the land-based sports books. And when I say testing slots, they test both the slots that you see in the physical facilities of the casino and the slots that you can play online. They are tested at the same level of standards. Same thing goes with table games. In fact, we've seen an incredible amount of creativity in the slots and the table games on the online side. So that's been both interesting and challenging to us, but we've met that challenge. Cognizant of all this, the board established the Office of Sports Wagering Operations, charged with monitoring all sports wagering operators for compliance with the board's regulations and the operator's internal controls. On a daily basis, the staff of the Office of Sports Wagering monitor reports of suspicious wagering activity. They investigate patron complaints, and they review promotions prior to those promotions going live. During fiscal year 23-24, the Office of Sports Wagering reviewed and approved over 325 different types of wagers in over 40 different sports, thousands of promotions, and hundreds of patron complaints. And while the board is not responsible for assuring the integrity of the athletic events being wagered upon, the board will not approve a sport for wagering purposes when there does not exist an overseeing governing body for the sport in question, a body that has promulgated comprehensive rules for how the athletic event is played and with strong internal controls that include sound policies and procedures regarding event integrity. Such overseeing governing bodies are the National Football League, Major League Baseball, National Basketball Association, and the National Hockey League, among many other athletic endeavors. Indeed, a real bright spot which has occurred with the broad legalization of sports wagering, now available in almost 40 states, is the open lines of communication which occurs between and among regulators, operators, the sports leagues, and the entities that provide integrity monitoring services, such as IC 360, which is here today to testify. The board has also worked diligently to utilize features that are in place to help address problematic sports wagering. And I'm going to ask Director Lanza to say a few words about compulsive and problem gambling in a minute or two. The board also must contend with the professional player side of the equation. And just this summer, the board's Office of Enforcement Counsel brought 2 actions against professional athletes. They remain pending for impermissibly wagering on professional sports in which they engage. And they are prohibited individuals from placing wagers on the sport that they played in. The actions are to place these athletes on the iGaming and sports wagering involuntary exclusion list. And as I mentioned, these actions remain pending. They have not appeared before the board to date. But if they are placed on that involuntary exclusion list, that is the one thing that we as an agency would have the authority to do to try and deter professional athletes from, and it could apply to college athletes as well if they're over 21 and they impermissibly gamble. They could be subject to being placed on the involuntary exclusion list that would preclude them from gambling on sports and online. So I would like to, with your permission, I'd like to ask our Director of Compulsive and Problem Gambling to give a little overview on our efforts in that area, which is so important.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to the committee for having us here today. Since the legalization of there you go. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. Since the legalization of expanded gambling in 2017, the board has seen an increase in participation in its tools and programs that assist citizens of the Commonwealth and beyond. We have seen many who are taking advantage of the tools put in place to assist individuals in keeping their gambling at safe levels, and others, like the board's self-exclusion programs, that allow for individuals who are experiencing gambling-related harm to ban themselves from participating in regulated gambling activities. In 2023, the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling received the highest number of self-exclusion enrollment requests than ever before. The number of enrollments for the calendar year grew by about 1,400 for a total of just under 5,500 enrollments last year. We've already surpassed 5,500 enrollments so far in 2024. In total, the OCPG has received and processed over 35,000 requests for enrollment in self-exclusion since 2006. As enrollments in these programs continues to grow, it is the goal of the OCPG to ensure the programs remain effective and that they encompass the needs of the participants. My office also continues to work with the PGCB licensees and operators to ensure that the appropriate tools and trainings are in place that allow for the detection of individuals who may be displaying signs of a gambling disorder, and to ensure these individuals receive the appropriate assistance. Pennsylvania's online operators are required to offer responsible gambling limits to every player, which allows for individuals to proactively manage their online gambling activity. Individuals who wager online are able to select time, deposit, wager, and spend limits. Over the past several years, participation in these preventative limits has also steadily increased. As always, the OCPG continues to work with the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Lottery, and all of our other partners to ensure that safer gambling is a part of the Pennsylvania landscape. Thank you for your time today.
So to conclude, the goal of regulating an industry is to minimize problems and to ensure a safe, reliable, and fun product for the betting public. Where we need to continue to work with the General Assembly to realize those goals, we certainly will. And where we can realize those goals within the statutory charge we have already been given, we will do that as well. But the work certainly continues. Thank you. And we're certainly glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. While I would like to hold all questions until after all the speakers, I would open it up for anyone who has questions of the Gaming Control Board, since they must be at another meeting. Jim?
Mr. O'Toole, you testified that there was about an 8% increase this year in sports betting online. So besides the growth, was there any, and you said there was 18 retail and 11, excuse me. Was there any new licenses, or is that, was the season, the whole year, was it the same, and it was just a natural 8%, or was there growth in licensing that brought new players on board?
On the sports wagering side, it was pretty much the same. Another very unique component of the gambling expansion bill was that in order to offer sports wagering or online gambling, an operator, the DraftKings, the FanDuels, the BetMGMs, all of those, had to partner with an existing casino licensee. And it was the casino licensee that was required to purchase certificates. So there were four certificates: slots, table games, poker, and sports. So they were, you know, most of them were purchased. A few for poker were not, but all of the sports ones were purchased by the existing casinos at that time. And I believe only one remains still open from the online perspective. But we are now working on an operator that will be partnering with that final licensee.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Okay.
Director O'Toole, thank you so much for your testimony today. And Commissioner Dermody, it's good to see you again. I did want to just ask you, because it occurs to me that gaming through this device is a bit more sophisticated than gaming in the physical space. So I wanted to ask you, just can you talk about a little bit about your complement of employees at the Gaming Oversight Board who are dedicated to the online kind of, as opposed to monitoring what's going on in the physical realm?
Certainly for iGaming, that falls within Director Resch's responsibilities as Director of Gaming Operations, and we added a new unit within his operations. Would you like to give a little background, please?
Sure. Thank you, Representative. Paul Resch, I'm the Director of Gaming Operations for the board. I've been with the board 18 years, and before that, had the privilege of working in the House for 8 years. In the Bureau of Gaming Operations, as Director O'Toole said, we have an iGaming unit. iGaming was launched in 2019, so we're 5.5 years into online gaming, and we did establish an iGaming unit. We have a Director of iGaming, and he has 6 compliance representatives that fall under his in his department, and they're really responsible for the day-to-day oversight of iGaming. So the gaming lab tests all of the slots and the tables and the platforms that are used in iGaming and online sports wagering. But the iGaming unit really is the day-to-day oversight. Think of them as our casino compliance representatives in our 17 casinos. They're there, and they, among other things, they oversee what we call soft launches of new websites. And so just this week, we have a new Caesars branded website that's launching called Horseshoe. And there will be a 2-day test period that they'll oversee, make sure that the games are working correctly and all of the features that Director Lanza talked about for self-exclusion and for self-limits are working. They also respond to patron complaints. As Director O'Toole said, our #1 mission for the Act is to protect the gaming public. So we're there to respond to patron complaints on any number of topics. Importantly, they also work closely with our operators on cybersecurity, and we require our operators to have an annual security assessment conducted when they first launch, and then annually thereafter, so that we can be assured that these platforms and all of the data that exists on those platforms is protected and that players' personal information is protected. So that's just a little overview about what they do.
And you mentioned patron complaints, and back to what Director O'Toole mentioned, that the legislative intent is to protect the public. So can you, is there kind of like a general direction that patron complaints really go to? I mean, I'm not asking you to be specific, but just to kind of summarize for us what kind of complaints you're getting.
Yeah, sort of the top 3, I would say, are withdrawals, right? So patrons often will, they'll make a deposit into their iGaming account, they'll play, and they'll be successful, and they'll want to withdraw from their iGaming wallet. And there's a process that operators go through where they review the withdrawal request to make sure that the player is who they say they are, that there's not any type of fraud occurring, or it's not a situation of money laundering. And they'll also make sure that the player's payment instruments that they use to deposit are in their name, that they're not using a payment method from someone else. So withdrawal requests are something that we would review. Promotions, as Director O'Toole said, we review promotions that operators submit. So a new player offer, such as sign up for our website and you can receive a deposit match bonus offer. There are a number of promotions that our operators conduct, and sometimes players have questions or concerns about the promotions and whether they, were correctly awarded the promotion or the bonus that they felt they were entitled to. And the other type of complaints that we would deal with, I would say, are concerns about the games themselves. Player might say that they were playing a game and the connection became disconnected, or they might have a concern about a bonus round that they were playing in, and perhaps the connection was lost either on their end with their mobile device, or if there was an issue with the game itself. And we investigate all of those reports and work with our gaming lab to make sure that the games are operating as they were tested and certified.
And the other division that we created as a result of online gaming is an Office of Sports Wagering Operations, which is structured very similar to the iGaming department under Paul's oversight. We have, I believe, we currently have a director, Kevin Kyle, and he has one supervisor and 4 investigative agents in sports wagering. And they do a similar work, but they focus on patrons that have issues with respect to sports wagering.
Everybody good on the questions? With that, we'd like to thank Director O'Toole and the board for joining us this morning. Very insightful, and we appreciate your time. Our next speaker is Josh Urkel, the Executive Director of the Council of Compulsive Gambling of PA. Josh?
Good morning. Thank you. Again, my name is Josh Urkel, and I represent the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for having us today, Chairman, and to all the members of the committee. We really appreciate the time, like Executive Director O'Toole said, to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about such an important topic and something that we work tirelessly to address on a daily basis. It's really a wonderful opportunity, and any time that we can provide any type of assistance or information or be part of a program like this, we are more than willing to. So thank you again. We do appreciate the return invite. This is something that we've done in the past. It's been several years since we've been able to testify in front of the Gaming Oversight Committee, but we are thrilled to once again have the opportunity to provide you with a little bit of information about the advocacy efforts that the council currently follows in terms of our daily mission, but also just to talk and expand a little bit on some of the services that are available in Pennsylvania. So when we are addressing a topic like betting integrity, especially in today's much advanced gambling landscape, it's incredibly necessary to consider, obviously, a number of different components. And like Executive Director O'Toole talked about, this is including things like regulatory oversight and market monitoring and data sharing, but also anti-corruption measures, industry transparency. And in our eyes, one of the most critical pieces is including protections for players and safer gambling elements that are designed to prevent problems. And then also having a clear outline of what available resources there are and how to access them for players. And this is obviously all in response to preventing problems from starting, or once problems have begun to develop, to put folks in touch with help in as efficient and effective a way as possible. The council, or CCGP as we're often referred, is the state affiliate of the National Council on Problem Gambling. And we've served as the state advocacy group here in Pennsylvania since 1997. And we address the needs of individuals and family members of individuals who are affected by problem gambling behaviors. We offer assistance to individuals as well as their family members through the Pennsylvania statewide problem gambling helpline, which we have available for folks to access on a 24/7 basis. And this is often by calling the 1-800-GAMBLER number. And we also address the issue of problem gambling throughout Pennsylvania by outreach efforts and continued programming and collaboration with a number of different groups. We work very closely with the Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, with the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, the Pennsylvania Lottery, Penn State University, and county agencies all throughout the Commonwealth, with the shared goal of helping to prevent and address problem gambling and gambling-related issues. Allow me to begin just by referring to our 2023 helpline report, our annual helpline report, as well as our most recent numbers in the monthly reports that we've collected. Much of the information that I'm going to speak about today regarding the helpline number, the 1-800-GAMBLER number, this is highlighted in these reports. For your convenience, and I believe a copy of the reports was provided. If not, I didn't see one in my packet, but if you need a copy, I do have an extra copy with me if you'd like to see one. I can also get that to you in a follow-up email. But what I'd like to share is the last page of the annual report. We always feature an at-a-glance section. And that at-a-glance section, it really provides some of the highlights and key findings that we see from throughout the year. So it's a great way to see what we're looking at and what insights we have in terms of shifts and trends and what we're seeing as far as the expansion of gambling and how folks are participating and then ultimately developing problems with it. Now, the Helpline Center, again, it's a 24/7 helpline center. And it's stationed round the clock by live individuals. So we don't have phone calls that are going to end up with prompts or messages or anything like that. This is direct assistance. And we feel that that's really important. We want to put callers in touch with help as quickly as possible. And every year we receive thousands and thousands of calls to the Helpline Center. And many of these calls are coming from citizens of Pennsylvania who are affected by problem gambling behaviors, as you can imagine. The helpline connects callers with a number of different additional resources all throughout the state, and this includes, but is not limited to, things like professional counseling services, information about self-help mutual aid meetings like Gamblers Anonymous or other comparable meetings, and then also a number of different tools and resources that are available. Things like self-exclusion, which Director Lanza talked about. These are all tools that can, again, act as barriers and act as a supplement to the treatment process. For somebody who's struggling or trying to enter into recovery, these are all excellent tools to have access to. The calls are obviously confidential. They are free to the public, and they offer assistance to individuals, again, as well as their family members. And to further meet the needs of Pennsylvania, the diverse population of Pennsylvania, we also implemented a language line service that offers assistance in over 200 languages to callers. Last year, in 2023, we saw our highest number of calls on help for record, for help on record. We had nearly 2,700 calls specifically for help from folks who were struggling or looking for help for a family member. And this is an increase. Just a few years ago, we were averaging somewhere around 1,100 calls a year. So we've seen with newer forms of gambling and newer opportunities, unfortunately, we've also seen, in addition to the participation increase, we've also seen problems that have apparently increased, at least, in the increase in call volume that we're seeing. And these calls, again, were made either by the individual or somebody looking for help for a loved one. In addition to the calling option, in 2015, we also added a chat and text feature. And this is something that can be accessed through our website, pacouncil.com. And both of these options, they offer individuals who may be struggling an alternative approach to connecting with the helpline specialist. So for somebody who isn't comfortable using the traditional phone call approach or just simply doesn't want to verbalize what they're struggling with, but would rather meet somebody online, and let's face it, a lot of the folks that we're seeing use this feature are coming over from online apps that they're already using. The fact that we've seen such an incredible growth over the past several years. Last year, we received over 500 chat and text connection requests from folks who were struggling and seeking resources. So as we continue to see more and more use of the helpline number, as well as more and more use of the chat and text features, we believe that they are valuable options to have for folks in Pennsylvania. Now, over the past 5 years, since newer forms of gambling have become available following the passage of Act 42, we have seen several shifts in call data, not just an increase. And some of the more notable shifts include a significant rise in calls from individuals who are struggling with sports-related betting, as well as online casino gambling or iGaming. And prior to the expansion, it's interesting to see that calls outlining these activities as most problematic, as the most problematic type of gambling being experienced, they represented a very, very small percentage of overall calls, and that has grown exponentially. And additionally, during this time, we've also seen a shift in the age of callers to the helpline. The majority of calls now coming in are represented by the 25 to 34-year-old demographic. And this is a much younger demographic than we traditionally saw prior to sports wagering and online gambling becoming available. In addition to that, we also have seen higher rates of calls coming in from 18 to 24-year-olds as well. Once again, traditionally, we've seen higher call volume in the 35 to 55 range representing the highest volume, but that has changed significantly since roughly 2020, 2021, about a year or so into the availability of sports wagering and online gambling being available. We also conduct a wide range of educational programs all throughout the Commonwealth, both virtual as well as in person. And our goal is increasing awareness about problem gambling and talking about the resources that exist, both from a preventive standpoint as well from a recovery and treatment standpoint. We partner with private organizations and county agencies and state departments, and the goal is to conduct community-based trainings and clinical trainings that we can ultimately use to increase the workforce of folks who are treating problem gambling throughout the Commonwealth for folks that are maybe struggling with other types of situations. What we also do is we work closely with the industry all throughout Pennsylvania to conduct the annual team member trainings. We refer to this as the Customer Assistance Program or the CAP training. This is a non-clinical training, but it's just basically focusing on resources and the steps to take in the event that a customer asks a team member at a casino for help. And we do this, again, to better assist guests who may be at some point in their visit where they're experiencing some type of negative issue related to gambling. And regarding our advocacy efforts, while we do remain neutral, and this is an important piece, we do remain neutral when it comes to gambling. We are not anti-gambling, we're not anti-gambling legislation or expansion. We don't support or oppose legislation to legalize or expand it, but our mission is to advocate for the development of comprehensive policies and programs that will ultimately provide help for the hundreds of thousands of folks in Pennsylvania, whether it be directly or indirectly, who are experiencing some type of issue and their lives are, as a result, negatively impacted by problem gambling and gaming. And whether it be related to expansion of protections associated with existed regulated gambling or the development of new regulations that will include a wide range of different customer protections for activities like skill games, which is another topic that we talk about quite frequently. Our goal is to improve health and wellness by reducing the personal, the social, and the economic costs of problem gambling and gaming in Pennsylvania. In closing, we do believe that the most ethical and cost-effective measures in response to gambling and gaming integrity issues is having a comprehensive public health strategy that includes prevention, that includes an education, that includes treatment and enforcement, and research services. But also that safer gambling and gaming standards are a vital element in this approach. So this concludes our testimony. I'd like to thank you all again for having us join today and having the chance to participate. I'll be happy to, I'll be here as well. I believe you said questions we'll keep to the end. I'll be happy to answer any that you have, but thank you again for your time today, everyone.
Thank you, Josh. Next, we have a presentation from Integrity Compliance 360. Here to explain that and what they do are Matt Heap and Jason Van Hoff from IC 360. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed committee members. My name is Matt Heap, Managing Director of ProBet, a product offered by IC 360. IC 360 stands for Integrity Compliance 360. I'm here with my colleague, Jason Van Hoff, VP of Investigations. We are honored to speak with you today about a critical aspect of the sports betting industry, integrity and compliance, and how we at IC 360 are addressing these challenges. At IC 360, we specialize in providing integrity solutions for the sports and gaming industry, leveraging cutting-edge technology to ensure compliance and foster trust. Ensuring consumer confidence and protection is the foundation of fostering a thriving legalized sports betting market in the Commonwealth. I've spent over 30 years in law enforcement and gaming regulation in the state of Colorado, and now with IC 360, I'm focused on bringing innovations like ProBet to the market. Again, Jason Van Hoff, our Vice President of Investigations, has an extensive career in compliance and integrity, also including stints with the NFL and the Department of Homeland Security and Defense Intelligence Agency. What makes an athlete vulnerable? When we think about integrity in sports, one of the key areas of concern is the vulnerability of athletes. There are a number of factors that increase this vulnerability. Increased exposure. Athletes today are under the constant public eye, which can lead to intense pressure. Competitiveness. The drive to win at all costs can sometimes cloud judgment. Injury and transitioning in or out of sports. Periods of uncertainty in an athlete's career can make them more susceptible to risky behavior. And money and ego. Athletes often have significant disposable income, especially with the rise of NIL, name, image, and likeness deals in collegiate sports. All these factors can contribute to risky decisions, such as gambling, which threatens the integrity of sport. This is why it's essential to have robust systems in place to monitor and detect vulnerabilities before they turn into major integrity breaches. Hand it off to Jason at this point to discuss what sports betting data is monitored through IC360.
As Matt said, my name is Jason Vanhoff. I'm the Vice President of Investigations. So one of the ways that we go about ensuring integrity of the markets is we work in concert with the governing bodies. So as we were talking about, the NFL, the NCAA, NHL, MLB, and all the way down, American Cornhole League, and all sorts of different leagues that are out there these days that are being wagered on. We work with state-level regulators, like we just heard from, and then finally we work with the operators themselves, the names you've all heard, DraftKings, Caesars, Sportsbooks, all these different things. So one of the things that we're doing is we're actually monitoring wagers from cradle to grave. So from when an operator first opens up those lines at what they think the market should be, all the way through until all bets have been placed and either paid out or collected or whatever. We monitor that and we overlay that with open source information, social media monitoring, and other contextual information. So what we're looking for is, as you can kind of see on the graph there, you see like a bit of a Bloomberg chart, right? And things are moving. There's people that are laying money, or there is individuals that are injured, or weather, or things of that nature, and they change odds based on those things. So what we're looking for is we're watching for how the markets are moving, and then we look for that contextual information. Did a team say that their quarterback is going to be out? And did that market move before that announcement was made public or after it was made public? Now, if it's made, if the announcement is made before the markets start moving, that's a good thing, right? That means that the processes are happening the way that we expect them to. Something happens, the effect is there's a change. What we get concerned about and what we watch for and alert those parties that I talked about, the governing bodies, the regulators, and the operators, is if all of a sudden markets start moving. We'll say Matt Heap is a quarterback for Penn State University.
Sure.
And all of a sudden we start seeing dramatic changes in Penn State's game coming up this weekend. And then 12 hours later, Penn State announces that Matt's not going to be playing due to some injury that happened in the last game. That's when we would actually start digging in a little further, alerting all those partners that we talked about to say that there's something here. Maybe there's a misuse of inside information. Additionally, when we're talking about a college student, that's a lot harder, right? An NFL quarterback lives a different life than a college quarterback, and they're not surrounded by a bunch of people that are of betting age as easily. So that's kind of the overall genesis of how we look at things. If you would, the next slide, please. Additionally, in some jurisdictions and some operators actually grant us wager level data. So we do not see anybody's PII, but we do see sportsbook operator customer 0123, and we're able to identify all the wagers that that individual is laying, what sides of the market they're taking, how they normally bet, and build out algorithms very similar to how the operators do to see if somebody is stepping outside of their normal means. So again, we're just going to use Matt as our example. If he is, better 123, and we see that on average he lays $500 every Sunday on an NFL game, and say it's I don't want to pick Steelers or Eagles because I'm not sure which side is which here. But we'll just say he bets $500 every Sunday on the Detroit Lions. And all of a sudden, he becomes a little bit anomalous, and he starts betting $10,000 on the Baltimore Ravens. There's questions about why somebody would do that after they start settling those patterns. And so that's why sometimes we're able to look a little further in when we have wager level data, and it's a very important thing for us to have. If you would, the next slide, please. I'll turn this back over to Matt to talk a little more on the GeoComply side.
Yeah, thanks. One of the most critical aspects of maintaining integrity in the sports betting is understanding who has access to sensitive information. Sportsbook operators and regulators have access to real-time geolocation data when a user places a bet. This enables us to help detect them, us, everybody in the ecosystem, detect when prohibited individuals like athletes or coaches are placing illegal bets in a particular area. That's kind of the geolocation in a nutshell. The implications are obviously significant. We can track illegal betting activities in real time and in collaboration with authorities, operators, regulators, act swiftly to protect the integrity of the sport. Next slide, please.
So one of the things that's become a lot more, I'll say, apparent and a lot more overt lately is the actual online abuse and threats against athletes. Specifically with a tie to gambling. So I don't want to say that this is just something that's new in history, and we don't have any empirical data to say how much this is raising, but things are becoming more and more pronounced. You can look on Twitter or X, whatever you call it these days, or Instagram or whatever the social media of choice is, and there's actually categories or there's actual chats dedicated to gambling, things that didn't happen, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago. And within that, gambling is becoming more of a thing, and individuals are reaching out to some of these athletes and letting them know exactly how unhappy they are when they lose a bet. Or sometimes it's not actually even an athlete having a negative performance. Sometimes it is an athlete having a great performance, a bench player coming off the bench and scoring 6 points in a game and it ruining somebody's spread. And so it's one of those issues that we take very seriously, and something that we've kind of started trying to address is trying to identify these individuals that I think nobody agree or everybody agrees should not be in this space. People that are so upset by the loss of a wager that they would then threaten another human being because of their performance on the field. If you would, the next slide, please. Just a little bit of how we're doing that. We've actually set up a couple of anonymous reporting mechanisms for individuals. We run one that is at a national level for anybody to actually report in any kind of information that they feel is derogatory or mean. And we then try to identify who those individuals are hiding behind their keyboard. Other thing that we've actually found that this portal is very useful for is we'll say whistleblowing. Individuals that know that maybe somebody on their team is doing something that they shouldn't be doing in the efforts of gambling, and they're able to report that anonymously and not have to be the one that goes up to their head coach or their athletic director or whoever and dime out another team member. You would, next slide, please. So it is phone-based. We do have ways for people to text in. We have people to call in, email in. And the other side, so we run a national level one, but also we are working with regulators and sports properties, conferences, leagues, and actually providing, we'll say, white labeled, so it would say, state of Pennsylvania type of anonymous reporting system. But we would still help triage the number of things that come in from that. As you can imagine, with an anonymous reporting system, not everything is what we're actually looking for. We've received, whistleblowing of somebody reporting underage drinking on a Division III campus in a small town in Tennessee. Well, no kidding. You're telling me that there's underage drinking on a college campus? Not an integrity issue, but something that we help triage so the university doesn't have to deal with that. If you would, next slide, please.
Thank you, Jason. I'd like to introduce you all to ProAbet and kind of take a step back real quick. When I was a regulator in Colorado and we had legalized sports betting in the state, and we had to promulgate rules to set up the regulatory framework, the one area that we really struggled with was how are we going to be able to safely and securely exchange information between operators, sports properties, et cetera, that revolved around prohibited athletes, coaches, trainers, in a safe and secure way that would allow for that transfer and cross-checking to occur. And the one thing that everybody agreed in those stakeholder meetings, I'm sure the same thing that that was discovered here in Pennsylvania, that technology did not exist to allow for that safe transfer and cross-checking. Fast forward to the past couple of years, and at IC360, we've created a product called ProAbet. ProAbet's the industry's first and only prohibited better solution, and it's designed to prevent athletes, coaches, and others in the sports world that have either undue influence or inside information that could impugn or affect the integrity of a sporting event, or to also identify individuals who are defined in statute or regulation prohibited from, in fact, participating in sports betting in some capacity. We do this by using the latest encryption technology that's called one-way cryptographic hashing, and that allows for the safe and secure exchange of sensitive data while protecting the personal privacy. No PII ever leaves the sports property, school, university, leagues, network in an unencrypted, hashed fashion, just as it does not at the operators. When they cross-check their patron database, all of their information is cross-checked, and it meets in the middle in the ProAbet server, generates an alert, and then goes back to both of the entities so that they can discuss and use their due diligence to figure out what's going on with that particular incident. ProAbet ensures that data stays within the agency's control throughout as I said, cryptographic hashing. We ensure the highest level of security without compromising accuracy. In addition to offering this data transfer and monitoring product to identify and prevent prohibited sports betting, we also offer education as a component with that, which we have found has been extremely instrumental, especially in the collegiate and NCAA space, where we go and do on-campus education in a lived experience fashion that discusses sports betting, the pitfalls, the perils, and how you will actually be monitored being on this list so that you're aware that if you are one of these individuals that falls in this umbrella of a prohibited person, how you will be, included in the program so that operators can, live up to their mandates of who is not supposed to be either betting on certain markets or just flat out not betting on pretty much anything according to NCAA policy. We have over 150 participants growing, including operators and also sports properties and schools. It's become the gold standard for prohibited better solutions. It's the only one that's actually to market right now that does what these mandates in the different regulatory jurisdictions ask. We just met our 1-year birthday, per se, in September, and there has been over 11 million checks against the database up to this point with roughly 2,000 alerts, which is, a pretty powerful indication that there's obviously things going on, and it's helped schools, universities, sports properties, and operators alike avoid some of the scandals and betting and instances that we've seen over the last several years involving professional athletes and collegiate athletes. This product was always designed with the intent to step into the self-exclusion realm to assist regulatory bodies to fulfill their mandate should they be required to operate an exclusion list, whether that's self-excluded or an involuntary exclusion list, such as Director O'Toole spoke of earlier. This product can also be adapted so that it augments and creates efficiencies for state regulatory bodies who are tasked with managing a list that has such sensitive information in it, or it can be created to make a full turnkey solution, such as what we've been awarded in Ontario as the national self-exclusion model. We were awarded that RFP recently, so we're creating a national self-exclusion program for them as we speak. As the sports betting landscape evolves, IC360 and ProAbet will continue to innovate and provide the tools necessary to maintain integrity and protect the industry. In conclusion, we're committed to ensuring the highest standards of integrity in sports betting. ProAbet and our other monitoring solutions at I360 are designed to prevent corruption, protect athletes, and maintain the trust of the public. We thank you all for your time today and look forward to answering any questions you may have and working together to continue to safeguarding the integrity of sports.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our last speaker this morning is Lori Kalani. She's DraftKings Chief Responsible Gaming Officer, and we welcome her.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Last but not least.
Best for last.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Chairman Harkins, Chairman Diamond, and members of the committee. My name is Lori Kalani, and I'm happy to represent the legal online gaming industry, especially DraftKings, where I serve as the industry's first Chief Responsible Gaming Officer. I came to this position as an attorney with extensive background in consumer protection law across many industries, including gaming. And I appreciate the importance that this committee's work revolves around, and want to thank you for creating the opportunity for me to discuss the work we're doing around responsible gaming in the Commonwealth and elsewhere. Online gaming is for fun and entertainment, and we are committed to responsibly creating the best trusted and most customer-centric destination for players. The legal online gaming industry wants to make sure that everyone who plays does so responsibly. This is why at DraftKings we take a multi-pronged approach to responsible gaming that includes educating and empowering our players so they can play responsibly, engaging with and supporting those players who exhibit risky behaviors and may need additional support, and collaborating with all external stakeholders. I'm going to spend the remainder of my time discussing each of those prongs. So first of all, educating and empowering players. We're committed to ensuring that our players play responsibly. We provide information to all of our players about the rules, the risks, and the odds of the game. And we proactively prompt every player to set a budget and limits on their deposit amounts, their play time, and the size of their bets. We introduce the tools to new players when they set up their accounts, and we regularly promote those tools to our entire player community. In addition to setting budgets for time and money, we have tools for setting up alerts for cool-offs, and we give players the ability to exclude themselves from our platform entirely. We centralize all of our responsible gaming tools and other resources on our DraftKings Responsible Gaming Center, which is easy to access and allows players to navigate from one tool to the other. All players across our platform also have access to something we call My Stat Sheet. My Stat Sheet is an innovative gameplay tool that gives players the ability to assess, track, and review their personal play activity in real time, such as the amount of time they spent and their net winnings and losses. The information can be viewed for the current month, the last year, or the lifetime of their play on our app. The data is presented in graphs and charts and is easy to understand. My Stat Sheet is intended to be a transparent resource to help players make informed decisions about their own gameplay habits. Our data shows that My Stat Sheet is having a direct positive impact on higher responsible gaming tool adoption rates, and we're hearing positive feedback on My Stat Sheet directly from our players through our research and ongoing player communications. We know that for some players, gaming can be a problem, and DraftKings utilizes advanced technology to help identify behaviors that may suggest a person is playing irresponsibly. We have over 60 people who work on responsible gaming full-time, including a dedicated analytics team who, with the assistance of software and real-time analytic tools, monitors transactional and behavioral patterns that may be irregular or suggest that players are at risk. If those patterns are detected on an account, we take a variety of measures to engage with the player. For example, if somebody is making excessive deposits in a short time, we send them a message in the app. We're meeting them where they are in real time and encourage them to utilize the deposit limit tool available to them. Or say a player is spending a lot of time, more time than they usually spend on the app, including late at night, so 2, 3, 4 in the morning. We send them a message and we urge them to take a break or to cool off. And if those patterns persist, we don't stop there, we go a step further. We send the player a message that takes over their entire screen, again, providing messaging around the particular behavior that we're seeing. And we require them to respond to us before there can be any further activity on the app. We're currently testing phase 3, which is a third action that will present the player with a real-time questionnaire and that will block the player from all activity moving forward until they respond to that questionnaire. Then our player protection team, which is a dedicated team who only works on responsible gaming issues, will receive those responses and undertake a real-time review to determine what action, if any, should be taken. Actions can include forcing limits on the player, suspending the account, or permanently banning them. Our player protection team is trained to engage with players, and when appropriate, they will direct players to live helplines for support. DraftKings also covers the cost of an introductory session with dedicated behavioral help should players self-exclude or be suspended or banned from the DraftKings platform. We view our responsible gaming efforts as part of a shared commitment within a community of important stakeholders, including lawmakers, regulators, public health organizations, industry associations, and sports leagues. We provide financial support to 33 state problem gaming councils, including the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania. We just announced recently that for the 4th year in a row, we will again provide that $15,000 grant to 33 councils. Our responsible gaming team has proudly worked closely with my fellow witness today, Josh, who you heard from earlier. We understand the vital role that CCGP plays by offering services to those in Pennsylvania who may be playing irresponsibly. Earlier this year, DraftKings joined with seven other gaming operators to form the Responsible Online Gaming Association. Rogue is committed to promoting responsible online gaming by supporting independent research, promoting best practices, and driving consumer and industry education and awareness efforts. Rogue is well underway on two very important initiatives that I'd like to mention. They're working on establishing a national clearinghouse that would allow Rogue member companies to share self-exclusion data, meaning that if a DraftKings player self-excludes on DraftKings, we would share that information with the clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse would then provide that to the other Rogue members so they could also self-exclude that or ban that player. They've also announced that they're developing a college education program that will launch in early 2025. The education initiative is going to utilize digital delivery tools to provide financial literacy and specifically responsible gaming education to students across diverse campuses and demographics throughout the U.S. Sports teams and leagues are very important partners in our efforts to educate and support responsible gaming efforts. The legal online operators work closely with the leagues to educate players and protect the integrity of the game. This includes leveraging our advanced technologies and working with relevant authorities and sports governing bodies regarding all sports integrity issues. In closing, I want to mention that we recently conducted a nationally representative survey to help us continue improving our responsible gaming safeguards. One of the things that we learned from that research is that the public generally does not distinguish between the legal operators and the illegal operators. I'm talking about operators like Stake and MyBookie. As we continue to work on building responsible gaming tools and other resources into every player's experience, I encourage this committee to consider how we can discourage the pervasive illegal market which operates without the oversight and without the responsible gaming programs that help keep the game fun for everyone who chooses to play. Thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lori, for your time and your great testimony. Do we have any questions for any of the speakers? Representative Gregory?
First up, all right, very good. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for this meeting today. As I have been spending the last several months getting ready for whatever the next plan is for me, I've been engaged in training to become a certified recovery specialist. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a CRS is or does, but during this training, and Pennsylvania happens to have the most stringent training program for this in the country. And I encourage you all, as you are here, to promote how you are protecting problem gamblers, that sometimes we need to take the services to the addicts. So a CRS and the business opportunity that that presents is that we currently have CRSs in hospitals for warm handoffs with addicts in, obviously, drug addiction crisis. The opportunity to just offer this as a suggestion, reaching out to what a CRS could actually provide in your casinos, I think is worth looking into. It's an out-of-the-box thought that I had just sitting here, and I wanted to share it because you just never know where something like that might lead. Taking the services to the addicts for casinos, I think, strengthens your ability to message to the people of Pennsylvania that you are concerned about them. And I think that's what you're all here doing today, and I appreciate that. And so take that for what it's worth. I think it's something worth looking into, and I'd be happy to talk more about it if you have any questions. But it is something that I think could be helpful. That's all I have. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Next, we have Representative Haddock.
Thank you. My question is for Josh Urkel. Josh, in your testimony, you said the Council of Gambling serves as a state advocacy group in Pennsylvania since 1997. I was wondering, as a new member of the House, could you share with us where do you get your funding, except for Lori's $15,000 grant that she's mentioned?
So we do get funding from a number of different resources. We work in a contractual basis with the Department of Drug and Alcohol programs, for handling a number of different programs and initiatives, including things like helpline services and data reporting and that sort of thing. We do work with the Pennsylvania Lottery as well, and we receive funding through the lottery for the programs and services that we offer them, and then also support from groups like DraftKings and also the brick and mortar establishments and licensees that are located throughout Pennsylvania. In addition to that, as a nonprofit, we do a number of different trainings and educational programs with councils, or with counties, and through that we're able to also, have different rates that we can negotiate with them for those training programs that we either develop or conduct or participate in some capacity.
So a fair amount of your funding comes from Pennsylvania directly from the
Yes.
and directly from our gaming board. Any tie to the revenue of gambling? That's my direct question.
Tie to the revenue? Well, it's so the way that the structure of the gaming industry works is that amount of money, and I forget what the percentage is. I think it's 0.02% of the gaming industry's revenue in Pennsylvania goes into a fund that the Department of Drug and Alcohol programs
And that's
oversees.
where you get your fund. Okay,
And
thank you.
That's
Thank
where
you
it
for that
trickles down from.
clarification.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned in 2023, your phone lines went from 11,000 to 23,000, if I have it right.
2,700.
2,700.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 2,700. Reviewing my notes, and you also mentioned, besides that growth, the texting that would seem to be new, and that's another avenue of problem gamblers reaching out for help.
Yes.
And in that, as we're expanding gambling in Pennsylvania, and you had mentioned one word late in your testimony that wasn't in the writing. My question is, with all that explosion of need in Pennsylvania, have you have any instances of tracking or being able to say whether people of Pennsylvania are calling with skill game, type game related addictions?
Yes, and that was one of the components that I will have a copy sent to for dissemination in our annual report. We do track. So one of the questions that the Helpline Center asks is, what is the most problematic type of gambling that you're experiencing from callers? And as you can imagine, there's a lot of slot machines and poker and sports betting and things like that, but skill games is one of the categories. What we've seen traditionally over the course, if we were going to average it out over the past 3 or 4 years, roughly 100 calls per year coming in from sport or from skill games specifically, being named as the most problematic type of gambling. So that kind of goes into a lot of what we discuss is, I know that's been a very, very hot topic over the course of the past several years. There's been debate over whether they are or are not gambling machines. Bottom line is there's folks out there who are struggling, and they don't necessarily recognize it one way or the other, but they need help. And that's where we come into the picture, is trying to make sure that is being addressed.
So I think my first comment is the skill-type games are not funding helplines at all at this point that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of,
Not
yes.
that we're aware of, right?
Yeah.
Representative, if I could,
yeah.
there's also a proliferation of sweepstakes and social casinos that operate in all 50 states under sweepstakes laws, and they're marketing to children, and they give away coins, but there's certainly an option to purchase coins, and they operate just like a casino, just like a sports book. They don't have responsible gaming programs, and they also don't contribute to the types of programs that you're talking about.
And that would probably be where you testified towards illegal type gambling. Is that fair?
Yes, I mean, I'm not here to.
I understand.
Yes, I'd say they call themselves sweepstakes casinos, and they rely heavily on sweepstakes laws, but I think they're really just a form of unregulated, unlicensed casinos at this point.
And that's very disturbing that they're going after children.
Well, they're 18 and older, and I've signed up for some of them just so I am not speaking, and there's no age verification whatsoever. They ask if you're 18 and you check a box.
Okay. I'm familiar with that type of program. Now, Josh, my last question, and you kind of started to allude to it. So I guess that we have instances of people of Pennsylvania, because there seems to be an argument whether skill-type games are gambling or not. But certainly people that are addicted are calling a gambling helpline to get help for gambling. So certainly there's elements in Pennsylvania and trackable records that people of Pennsylvania are saying that skill games is a form of gambling.
Sure.
Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Yeah, between the helpline data that we collect from callers and then the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, who oversees the treatment contracts for providers that are offering services throughout the state, they would also report those types of figures as well, because a lot of times that's the calls that we get to our office is from not the individual who's struggling, but from the treatment providers who are saying, I'm having more and more clients come in saying skill games is why they're seeing me, versus a traditional form of legalized, regulated gambling.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Next, we have Representative Rinkovich.
My question is for Mr. Urkel. One more.
You're a man in demand.
Yes.
Mr. Urkel, thank you for your testimony, and thank you for what your organization does assisting and advocating for problematic gamblers across our Commonwealth. Throughout your testimony, you mentioned that your organization takes a neutral approach to gambling expansion, yet throughout the course of your testimony, you did mention or attribute multiple times that perhaps the doubling of your call volume between 2022 and 2023 was gambling expansion. Now, I'm not sure how much gambling expansion actually took place between 2022 and 2023, but possibly skill games, and I'd be happy to see that report. But does your organization study the economic factors that perhaps lead people to problematic gambling? I mean, if you look into history during the Great Depression, movie theaters had a soar of ticket sales. Does your organization study economic factors and what might be leading people beyond putting it at their fingertips?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And it is something that we rely on different types of research programs that are being done throughout the state and throughout the country. And a lot of what we try to look at is trends just like that. Is what is driving folks to be able to do this? I think when we see shifts like we saw with the helpline over the course of the past few years, and please understand too, the changes that we saw 2017, 18, 2019, even 2020 through the pandemic, the initial days when casinos were shut down for several months, that's where we saw those 1,100 average calls coming in for help. It was 2021 that things doubled. And then 2022, they increased. And then 2023 was the highest number. So we saw this elevation that took place over the course of several years, but it was a very short amount of time. And what we are starting to see now is a bit of a plateau with the call volume, but the baseline is that much higher. You know, we're now 2.5 to 3 times when we combined the number of chat and text requests that we get for help with the call volume. And as far as the driving factors, I think it's really complex because there are obviously different financial reasons that people feel that they can afford to do this. But when we see the shifts that I mentioned a moment ago with the demographic, with the types of gambling, the types of availability, I think there's so many complex reasons that why we're seeing these increased numbers. And I think that part of it also has to do with, and I have to say this, just kind of looking at it from all angles, is we've seen more advertising for gambling than we've ever seen, ever, right? You can't watch a baseball game or a basketball game or America's Funniest Home Videos without seeing a commercial during the broadcast. And not even that, it's not just the advertising, but it's the in-game broadcasting of go place a bet now. Now this availability is there. And typically with those ads, even though it may be on the last section or it may be with a lot of other type, that 1-800-GAMBLER number is always something that is, as part of the mandates, it's always something that is included. So we have to say that there's possibly also just more recognition of the number. I know anecdotally from me, when I travel throughout Pennsylvania, in 2018, if I asked a room full of folks, have you ever heard of the 1-800-GAMBLER number? A number of hands went up, but it was not the majority. That's entirely different today. We see many more hands going up. So I think overall, there's just this overall recognition of the number, which ultimately is a good thing. But going back to skill games and that conversation, that's another component that's very concerning, is not only are there is there that ongoing discussion and no protections, but we don't even have the 1-800-GAMBLER number anywhere near those machines, unless maybe there's a lottery terminal nearby that somebody might see it posted on. But the fact that we have 100 calls a year coming in regarding skill machines, it's kind of miraculous when you think about it. And we shudder to think how many more calls we would be getting if there were some type of messaging of helpline availability on those machines or nearby.
Thank you for that perspective. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Diamond, last for your thoughts.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for coming today, and Lori as well. Can you just, Representative Haddock asked the question about your funding before, but can you just break down in percentage, rough idea, how much of the funding that you get to tackle this problem is mandated by law versus how much is a generous grant from some of the operators where you may have to go to either beg for permission or just, how much is mandated by law?
As far as I'm aware, none is mandated by law to us directly. It's through the relationships and contracts that we've built. So it didn't all start with one number, one solid number of dollars. This was something that over the course of time, through the council expanding, the work that we do and the reach, that's kind of how the funding was built. But as far as I'm aware, there's no specific dedicated or mandated amount that goes directly to us.
But what amount is mandated that is specifically targeted out of all gaming revenue to go to not
Services.
Particularly your group, but to address problem gambling?
Yes. So that would be that 0.02, I believe it's 0.002% of basically of industry terminal revenue.
Okay.
Online operations, brick and mortar establishments, that sort of thing. The legislation originally had that amount allocated for the Compulsive and Problem Gambling Treatment Fund, which includes treatment reimbursement for counselors that offer treatment services, but it also goes into a number of other programs, things like education and county prevention programming. It can be kind of earmarked. That's the one that's all overseen by the Department of Drug and Alcohol programs.
And just your opinion, you think that's enough?
Yes, we can always use more in the field. Is that
I appreciate
diplomatic enough?
your honesty. Thank you, Chairman.
Talk about putting the guy on the spot. I'd like to thank everybody, all the testifiers and everybody that showed up today, and thanks for your involvement and your insight. It's valuable for the paths that we're going to pursue, probably much more aggressively in the next session. I look forward to seeing you all again and working with you on that. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.